Welcome along to Extra Time here on LCFC TV and LCFC Radio after Leicester's disappointing home defeat to Everton on Sunday. We'll have a look at that. We'll also have a look at what happened on Thursday, obviously, in the UEFA Europa Conference League against Roma and what Leicester can do to make sure this season ends strongly. We'll look ahead to that Norwich game as well on Wednesday. Iwan Roberts and Matt Elliott are our guests this afternoon. How are you both doing?
Yeah, good, thank you, Dan. Nice to see you both back safely from Rome.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ewan. It was a nice long trip, wasn't it, Matt? But it was brilliant being there. And again, we've seen too much of each other, I think, in the last few days.
Never enough, Batesy. Never enough of you, mate. But yeah, it was a bit of a mission overall on the travelling side, and things didn't go as hoped for on the football aspect. But it was a memorable trip. I'll give it that. Yeah, to go. The Stadio Olimpico was something I really looked forward to, and it didn't disappoint. Neither did the atmosphere. Unfortunately, the result did, but a valiant effort. I think some people were disappointed about the lack of penetration, but Roma, good solid outfit, weren't they? But that's done and dusted now. It was good while it lasted, sort of thing, and unfortunately, didn't materialise as hoped for, but. Yeah, it was a memorable trip for a number of reasons.
Absolutely. Was it the best atmosphere, do you think, Matt, you've ever sort of experienced or encountered in football in all your time?
It's certainly right up there. I mean, at the time, when I was co-commentating, I mentioned something along those lines, and you dropped that question on me. I'm struggling to think of better, possibly bigger crowds, playing at Wembley, etc., or even the opening day of the World Cup, Scotland against France. But in terms of sort of intensity of atmosphere, yeah, it's definitely right up there, if not the best. Yeah, I mean, you just sort of imagine playing there like week in, week out. I'm sure the atmosphere is not quite as intense regularly, but what a place to play your football, isn't it?
Yeah, we've been spoiled, I think, this season. Well, Leicester fans themselves have been spoiled by those. Certainly, those recent 3 trips to Rennes, PSV, and Roma, where the atmospheres were all brilliant. Unfortunately, they just fell at that semi-final hurdle. You could tell Ewan there was obviously still natural fatigue, as there has been. I think that was Leicester's something like their 54th game of the season yesterday. Natural fatigue yesterday, also natural disappointment that came from Thursday. There was always going to be that hangover, if you like, from the disappointing result.
Yeah, I mean, especially in recent weeks, Dan. I mean, the fixture pilot for Leicester has been relentless. They've been playing sort of midweek, Wednesday, Thursdays, Tuesdays, then again on a weekend. Obviously, the club had a few problems sort of Christmas time with COVID, so they're catching up with the games that were postponed. And it's not easy. And if you look at the opposition yesterday, Everton are fighting for their lives. They know they're in big trouble. They came down to the King Power after a great result last weekend when they beat Chelsea at home, which sort of breathed new hope and new life into their survival hopes. So it's never going to be easy. You've got a team in Leicester with nothing to play for, apart from pride and finishing as high up as the Premier League as they possibly can. Everton, as I say, is just fighting for their lives. Don't want to go down. Although after saying that, after seeing the game, after seeing the saves that Pickford made in that second half, the Harvey Barnes chances that he had, that probably Leicester will feel as if they should have got something from the game. I don't think Leicester were at their best. And it has reminded me of games of late where dominated possession, but have lacked that penetration in the final third, that creativity. Obviously, there was no James Maddison yesterday, and he's a massive miss. I think he's been the best player this season. I thought he was the best player in Rome on Thursday night. I thought he was absolutely magnificent. And when you take a player of James out of your team, you're never going to be as threatening, sadly. But all in all, it's been a tough season. It's been a tough season for numerous reasons.
Yeah, I think before the game, Matt, we kind of all got the sense on Matchday Live the game could have gone in that sort of direction, or it could have been a very cagey game, just purely because of what happened on Thursday and the natural disappointment that there was for Leicester.
Yeah, I think so. You got that feel in the build-up, didn't you? And Leicester could have played sort of few worse opponents, really, at that time. You know, obviously their desire to avoid relegation, but their away supporters, you know, who are excellent anyway, but had that extra intensity about themselves as well, wasn't it? And that transferred itself to Everton's performance, made them more determined. And it was difficult for Leicester supporters as well to get overly enthused, and they were sort of shouted down a little bit by the away fans. And you know, Leicester players, for the reasons you've just mentioned there, have just found it difficult to get themselves really fired up. But yeah, it was all too predictable, maybe, to the way the game was going to go. Yeah, which is not acceptable, but understandable. But at the same time, Leicester contributed to their downfall as well, didn't they? You know, they could have been tighter and more disciplined defensively, particularly on the second goal, and you know, and a bit more ruthless, as you mentioned there, when chances did arise in the second half. But you just never got the feel that they were going to get that equaliser. I don't know why. I mean, when you think back, they were more than presentable opportunities a couple of times for Barnes in particular. But you just felt it was Everton's day. And that's difficult to come up against, but I don't know. I can understand the disappointment, you know, from supporters on social media, etc., whatever. But have a look at the bigger picture, maybe. But you don't want the season to just peter out, that's for sure. No. And Leicester, when you look at it all said and done, Leicester 14th place, many reasons for it, for the season being affected, but Leicester have got to strive for higher than that these days. They have that capability, don't they, for sure.
How do they stop the season petering out, Ewan? How do they make sure that the performances maybe or the results aren't like they were yesterday? Because it is quite difficult at this stage of the season.
It is. You know, and you get the old saying, we dust ourselves down and we go again. It's been a proper hard slog, Dan, this season. You know, and we've spoken about the issues and the problems that the club have had with injuries. You know, we can't really use that as an excuse over the last 3 or 4 weeks, because Brendan has got players back fit and into his squad, and he's used his squad very, very well. You know, he's chopped and changed when needed to be. He's put priority on the Europa Conference League competition. But you've got to have that personal pride, you know. And you look at the remaining 4 games, I think 3 of them are definitely winnable. 2 teams are already relegated. Southampton at home, who are in dreadful form. Yeah, Chelsea away, going to Stamford Bridge is never easy. And I think try and finish in the top half. I think that would be the target for me now. If I was Brendan, that would be the message I'd be getting, because that's quite possible. Okay, yeah, they're 14th at the minute, but they've you know, Leicester have got games in hand. They can win 3 of their last 4 games. There's every chance they can finish in the top half once again.
One thing I will underline as well, Ewan, is that maybe fans saying, oh, they're 14th. Obviously, they've got those games in hand. Regardless of that, Brendan Rodgers for the last month, or really since Ren, has been making considerable changes to his starting 11 for the Premier League, which, had they not got through in Europe, he wouldn't have done that. So,
totally agree.
Do you understand what I mean? That he would have
absolutely.
He would definitely have picked up more points in the Premier League had the European campaign not been there.
And that's I won't say the problem you get. That's the issues, or these are the issues you have to deal with when you've been successful. You know, when you've finished in the top 5, top 6, when you've won a cup competition, when you're in Europe, these are the things you have to deal with. You know, you look at the teams that are in and around Leicester in that Premier League they've had 3 competitions. A lot of those teams haven't gone far in either League Cup or FA Cup, so they've basically had the league to concentrate on. They've had weeks and months of playing Saturday, Sunday, Saturday, Sunday, Saturday, Saturday. They haven't had the fixture backlog, the fixture congestion of so many games, and it's not easy. It's not easy. You're okay that the so-called big clubs, your Liverpools, your Man Cities, your Uniteds, your Arsenals, your Chelseas, they're used to it because they've played in Europe for so many years. This is quite new for Leicester. It's only the 3rd season that the club has qualified for Europe. Hopefully there'll be plenty more, and the more times they do qualify for Europe, the more they will get used to this sort of season.
Let's just concentrate on that game again then yesterday for a little bit, Matt. Obviously, there were a lot of chances in that second half for Leicester. They came up against Pickford, who at the moment is, I'm not going to say single-handedly keeping Everton in the Premier League, but he made some brilliant saves against Chelsea in their 1-0 win last week, and then he made some vital saves again for them yesterday.
Yeah, he's not England's number 1 for nothing, is he? He's a very decent goalkeeper, and he's coming to the fore in a time of need for Everton. Shouldn't be too surprised about that, really. I think he's highly talented, isn't he? But it's erratic sometimes. But he was part of Leicester's downfall yesterday. But again, at times, a couple of instances at least, he possibly shouldn't have been given the opportunity to make the save, really. But yeah, he was pivotal for Everton yesterday. I think also sort of character-wise as well, he drives his teammates on, and he's always on at them, barking at them, reminding them what to do. You get the feel that Everton players need that a little bit over this period. But Leicester, Mendy of all people, stretched Pickford to his limit, didn't he, in the second half for a great effort that surprised everyone in the ground, I think, me and you included, Batesy, because we were just saying that he hadn't scored in his time at Leicester. And I mentioned that he probably never will, and then he popped up with that strike. It must have had us talking, but yeah, I think Barnes, a couple of opportunities, wasn't it? One of them was an excellent save, sort of scrambled, so pushed away by Pickford, but it wasn't convincing effort by Barnes, really. Didn't put enough on it. The header going wide, wasn't it? Obviously, Pickford nothing to do with that, but yeah, it was a big barrier, wasn't he? A big barrier, but Leicester just came up a little bit short. Didn't make him work quite hard enough, in truth.
Patson Daka took his goal well, Ewan, didn't he? Yeah. When the chance fell to him.
Well, he had 2 defenders against himself, and he's up against Yerry Mina, and he's never going to be stronger than Yerry Mina. But what he does, he makes a proper nuisance of himself. He sort of gets his body into Mina, who sort of stumbles and sort of him and Coleman get in each other's way. And once he was through, you just got the feeling he's not going to miss. And it was a terrific finish on his left foot, as Matty alluded to, against a keeper banging form in Jordan Pickford. On his left foot, probably his weaker foot, but he had no hesitation in, I need to pull this onto my right. I've got more confidence in my right of scoring. No hesitation whatsoever, clinical finish. And as I say, he made that chance himself, Dan. By chasing a lost course, making a real nuisance of himself, making himself not horrible to play against, if you like, by just getting his body into Mina. And I say, really, really good finish, and a good response. I mean, conceded that fantastic strike. Some goals I think you've just got to admire. And Everton's first by Mikolenko, absolutely fantastic strike. Not too much that you can do defensively about that. In all honesty, you've just got to admire the goal. But it was a good reaction, and it was a good finish from Patson. It's been a stop-start season for him. He's had to be patient. But he probably knew that when he was signing that he was going to spend lots of time on the bench. But what's he got now? 11 goals in 37 appearances in his first season at a new club. That's a healthy return, I think.
Yeah, and there was belief, Ewan, that he was going to score, wasn't there? I think, as you rightly said, when he was through, I think everyone believed it was going to be a goal, which is testament to him in a way.
Yeah, he's watched a lot of football of late. You know, earlier in the season when Jamie Vardy wasn't available, he was the one that was getting the nod before Kelechi Iheanacho. In recent weeks, Brendan's turned to Kelechi. So Patson's been on the bench, but every time he's been given an opportunity, Dan, when he's been through on goal like that, he is clinical. You know, the lad can finish. He is a finisher. We've spoken about his goal scoring record at his previous club. It was outstanding. And what is he, 24? You know, he's still very, very young. He's still got lots to learn, obviously. And I think that the more he plays, I think the better he will get. But I don't think anybody in that King Power Stadium, when they saw him racing through 1-on-1 against Jordan Pickford, thought he was ever going to miss that chance.
Do you agree, Matt? Do you think that obviously being a first season for Patson Daka, there was always going to be an element of bedding into the Premier League that hopefully, and if he can get a couple of goals, including yesterday now, towards the end of the season, it'll give him a lot of confidence and hopefully next season he'll really kick on.
Yeah, I think it was always going to be the case, wasn't it? He's always going to play second fiddle at best, wasn't he, really? But yeah, he's had his fair share of opportunities, but there's always going to be a bit of adjustment. I think coming from where he did, we've mentioned him before, he's obviously a natural goal scorer to score the amount that he has over the period he has. But there's other aspects, other facets to your game that you need to bring in the Premier League, and he's developing those and still learning them. I think that's quite evident. I think, in truth, you'd probably like to see more of an improvement quicker from him in that aspect. Looks a little bit off the pace at times. I don't mean he's got a lack of pace, just the sharpness and readiness of mind sometimes to react or see situations developing and then, you know, show, spin, make the run, etc. But having said that, he's shown good intelligence with his timing of his runs at times, on occasions. You know, holding his run and fanning the run out, curving his runs, etc. Particularly in Europe, we saw that. But I think he's found it quite difficult playing that lone role when he does, because, as Ewan says, he's game and he'll get his body in there. But I mean, he's a powerful boy. He's got big, strong thighs on him, hasn't he? You know, he's got a good, solid base with which to hold the ball up from. But he's found it a little bit difficult dealing with the centre halves, you know, sort of jostling him and etc. And I don't know, he seems a little bit startled by things on occasion. But like Ewan said, he's only more he plays, the better he's going to get. Natural finisher. People have said it about other strikers before, you know, different clubs. Jamie Vardy is not a bad example. You know, people saying, oh, he's raw, he's not ready for the Premier League, and etc. Look what happened there. You know, it's possible that Daka can go on, not necessarily to Vardy's level, but, you know, go on and surprise a few people, I think, because he's well worth persevering with, put it that way.
Oh, absolutely. Next up, Ewan, is one of your old clubs, Norwich City, of course. You know an awful lot about them. They're already relegated. Will that make them more difficult to play against, do you think, on Wednesday? Is that just a cliche? What do you reckon?
I don't think so, Dan. I mean, I sort of watched bits of their game against West Ham yesterday, and they were awful. You know, it looks like they've thrown the towel in. They can't wait for the season to finish. They conceded 75 goals in their 35 games. That's 2 point whatever goals a game. They've only scored 22, Dan. You know, they've got problems in both penalty boxes. They've won one of their last 14 games. You know, away from home, they've been awful. You know, they've lost 12 of 17 away games. They've not scored in 11 of those 17. They're there to be beaten, and I can't see Dean Smith being able to pick them up for a game that they probably just don't want to be at. In all honesty, I think it does give Leicester a great chance of bouncing back and bringing this poor run of no wins in 7 now to an end. And I was looking, and the last time Norwich were in the Premier League, they took 4 points off Leicester, and had Leicester had those 4 points, they would have finished 4th above Chelsea. And so, is there a chance to sort of get one over the team that cost you dearly 2 years ago? I think there's every chance. I think there's a chance for Leicester to go out and put a proper show on in the King Power and win the game comfortably.
Which is needed, Matt, really, after what happened yesterday.
Yeah, it is. You know, anything other than that will receive criticism, won't it? But need a little bit of positivity, I suppose. Looking for that against Norwich on Wednesday. No better opponent, really. Talked about Everton being a difficult one at that particular time. Norwich, you've got to expect that you're going to, 1, dominate the game, and 2, go and win the game quite comfortably. It is that stage of the season. It is hard for players to motivate themselves, but it's certainly more difficult for Norwich players to motivate themselves than Leicester. And I think it's a good point that Ewan makes there about what motivational tools does Brendan use, apart from their own personal situation, their own standing, say, at the club as well. Some players, you're constantly proving yourself at football. To the manager in particular, your worth within the team, and prove that you've got a future there. And also the fact that you said there about, can you get into the top half? I mean, Leicester these days, most people consider them a top half Premier League team, and they need to go and make that happen. Really, anything else less than that, I mean, that's a decent achievement in itself. You've got to be realistic, regardless of where Leicester have finished in the last couple of seasons, whatever. You're always looking to, do as well as possible, of course, aren't you? But that's a good achievement in itself. But for size, a club the size of Leicester, but anything below that is below par, pretty much, isn't it? So that's the incentive and the motivation that Rodgers can instill in his players.
And you look at the fixtures that are left, including Norwich. Obviously, there's Watford and Southampton, and obviously we know Chelsea away. Their home form hasn't been great, certainly in 2022. There are very winnable games for Leicester. So they can put not a completely different spin, Matt, on the season, but they can certainly end the season strongly and get into that top half. And then suddenly a European semi-final, a quarter-final defeat in the Carabao Cup to the eventual winners Liverpool, a top 10 finish in the Premier League, considering the amount of injuries there's been. That isn't a horrendous season that maybe there is a feel that it is at the moment, which I completely disagree with, but it wouldn't even be a bad season when you look at the facts like that.
No, exactly. Things can change quickly, you get different perspectives, etc. And I think, again, yourself and Ewan mentioned about the difficulty of playing in Europe. That is a big factor, and not just now at this stage of the season. Earlier on in the campaign as well, there were adjustments. People were quite quick to forget. It's a balancing act. You can't put your best team out every single time, because over the long term, those performances and results are going to tail off. So then you'd bring in. It's a tough job these days, and in seasons gone by, a lot of clubs have almost sort of dismissed. Never mind the Europa Conference. Some clubs or supporters have said they almost regret the fact that they're getting in the Europa League before it's happened. They're like, it's going to have a massive effect on our season domestically. Wolves, for example, people were saying that, although Wolves coped pretty well, I think, in their first season. But it's it's a huge thing to come to terms with, really. You know, and I think that has had an effect as well. It's not an excuse at all. Like I say, it's part and parcel of reaching your goals, really, is, you know, striving for success, and it's part of the club's development, really. You know, you look at it and, okay, if you're going to get consistently challenged, stroke be in Europe, then you've got a right to sort of say to the recruitment board or the chairman, etc., okay, I need more availability of players, you know, the depth of squad to deal with this, that will move forward. And I think you need, like I said earlier, you need to look at the bigger picture, really. Having said that, Leicester need to improve their results really of late. You can't use it as a total excuse. People will say, oh, it's just a bit of a cop-out, etc. But, you know, they are justifiable reasons, the injuries as well. But having said that, I think generally, Leicester, I think you can see the areas where Leicester need to improve. And the players themselves will see it, Brendan Rodgers will see it. They need to do something about it sooner or later.
And that can start, Ewan, as we know, on Wednesday. Against a team that you've referenced there are already relegated. They had a really poor result at the weekend. It's probably, if you could pick a game in the Premier League to have, it would be home to Norwich at the moment.
Yeah, you know, that defeat yesterday, there's only Leicester at the King Power this season. They've been a tough team to beat. It was only the club's second home defeat in their last 11 games. And I've spoken about the Spurs one and the manner that they lost that game. They should never have lost it. First home defeat in 7. So it came out of nowhere, really, but we've spoken about the reasons why we think Everton had the upper hand yesterday, so we won't go there again. And I do think Wednesday night is a great opportunity. You know, what does Brendan do? Does he make changes again? I mean, and let's not forget, Dan, you know, we've spoken about injuries. The main man has been missing for many, many weeks. Jamie Vardy's been missed for nearly the whole of the second half of this season. You know, you take anybody from any team who scored the amount of goals that Jamie Vardy has for Leicester, he's going to be massively missed. It's an impossible hole to fill. You've got to spend millions in replacing that type of centre forward. So we're not making excuses. You know, Wesley Fofana has missed the majority, probably the club's best defender. You know, we're not making excuses. They're facts. They are facts. I don't care what anybody says. But yeah, I'd fully expect Leicester to bounce back on Wednesday and get back to winning ways against Norwich City.
Hopefully they do. Right, a week today is the end of season dinner, the end of season awards for Leicester City, for both the men's team, the women's team, the academy, and the development squad as well. So I thought I'd ask these two their opinions on a couple of the awards. So I'll just run you through the awards that are on offer to win next week. There's the men's player of the season, women's player of the season, both men's and women's players player of the season, both men's and women's goal of the season. We've got men's young player of the season as well, men's and women's academy player of the season, and men's development squad player of the season. So plenty of awards up for grabs for both the men and women then next week. The voting is out for all Leicester City fans. They can have their say on certain awards, pretty much all of them, apart from obviously player of the season. So I'm going to ask you two, where are your votes heading then? Matt, firstly, men's player of the season. Who do you think it will be? Who is getting your vote?
Not as straightforward as you might think. Well, certainly this season, really. I mean, straight away, I think the players that played for the majority of the season, and there haven't been that many because of the disastrous injury issues that Leicester have had. You know, Tielemans springs to mind, but being honest, he hasn't had his most productive season, his best season, has he? You know, but he's churned out the performances. I'll give him that. Kasper Schmeichel has to be in the equation, I think. I know he's had his critics in certain ways, certain areas of the game, but if you think back across the breadth of the whole season, he hasn't done too much wrong and quite a bit right. despite Leicester's, below par, shall we say, overall results. If it's the second half of the season, I think there's only one winner, to be honest. But you have to take it over the duration of the campaign. But Dewsbury Hall, second half of the season, has been fans' favourite. Everyone's favourite, I think, pretty much. Brendan Rodgers' favourite. So he'll be in the running. I think he'll be in the running, really. It's been that sort of season. Last one, James Maddison, yeah. Again, you forget how long he was out for, injury-wise, but wasn't at his best at the start of the season. Came back for a period, did well, and he's had a stop-start season. But, Ewan, rightly mentioned him earlier in terms of assists and goals and quality of goals as well, isn't it? Oh, tricky one, really. It is tricky. I'm trying to make
how many more of the current squad can you mention, do you think? Do you reckon you can get them all?
No, I think that's it. That's my point, really. There aren't, but none of them have had a standout season, have they? In truth, that's what I'm trying to make a decision while I was waffling. I'll go for.
You've semi-decided, have you, Matt?
Yeah. Do you know what? I don't. Dewsbury Hall.
There we go. He's also in the running, by the way, for men's young player of the season as well. So
he can have that one. Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely, without doubt. But I don't know. Go on to Ewan. What do you reckon?
No. Matt thinks Kieran Dewsbury Hall. How about you, Ewan?
I agree that Kasper Schmeichel should be in the reckoning. Some of the vital saves that he's made on early on in games as well. But those are the two names that spring to my mind immediately. Dewsbury Hall and James Maddison. I mean, Dewsbury Hall has been outstanding since the very first second he set foot on the Premier League pitch. He hasn't looked out of place. He's got so many strengths. His honest endeavour, his energy levels. He's got that little bit of devilment in him as well that you need. He can pick a pass. His work rate is phenomenal. But I'm going to go with James Maddison. I think 14 goals. I think it's his second best season in his career. As every single goal's been an absolute worldie as well. The quality of goals that he scored has been top class. His assists, I mean, a few weeks ago, he was the highest assist English scorer of goals. I think he had 21 altogether. So I think he's been tremendous. And I think of late, I think he's been the best player, and without him in the starting 11, is a big hole to miss, because I don't think anybody's got the guile and the creativity that he brings to the team. But Dewsbury Hall's been magnificent.
Yeah, James Maddison, top of Leicester City's both their goals and assist charts this season, albeit he's joint top of the assists with Harvey Barnes and Kelechi Iheanacho, but joint top of one, top of the other. You'll be hard-pressed to find maybe a better player than James Maddison. Could be Kieran Dewsbury Hall as well, though. You can have your say on lcfc.com, though, for whoever you think deserves to be the LCFC Men's Player of the Season. You can have your say, of course, on all of those other categories that I mentioned earlier. The only other one that I'm going to ask these two, though, about for now is Goal of the Season. Youri Tielemans against Manchester United. These are the nominations. So Tielemans against Manchester United. Tielemans again against Brentford. Harvey Barnes against Leeds away. Kieran Dewsbury Hall in Napoli. Maddison against Liverpool in the Carabao Cup. James Maddison's first goal against Randers. Albrighton against Rennes. Castagna against Brentford. Maddison against Brentford. And Kieran Dewsbury Hall against Crystal Palace. So that was in obviously chronological order from the start of the season to the end. And I started with Matt last time, so Ewan, you can go first. What's your goal? Because it's a really tough choice. If player of the season was tough, this is even tougher, I think.
This is a tough decision. I mean, there's some unbelievable strikes there. Albrighton's strike against Rennes. What a strike that was. You know, James Maddison, I think he could have a competition for goal of the season on his own. The goals that he scored, you know, the two goals at Randers. One, the free kick was absolutely superb. I think he scored a goal at Burnley with his left foot as well, in a win up there. At the time, I was at Brentford, and I'd seen Yuri's goal against Man U, and I thought that was a fantastic goal. And then we had this debate after the Brentford strike, which was the best, and I went for the goal that he scored against Man U, where he sort of had nowhere else to put it, and to get it so precise, that skill is unbelievable, to lift it over the goalkeeper who's 6'4", 6'5". And at the time, I sort of decided, I thought that was a better goal. But having seen them again, and I was there, I witnessed it live, that strike at Brentford. And I mean, you will never, ever see one hit sweeter. I mean, it was a fantastic goal. And it, you know, beat David Ryan. It gone past him before, it hit the back of the net before he'd even realised what had happened. It was a fantastic goal. And I'll go for that one. But, I mean, that's a tough job to decide which one's going to win.
What do you think, Matt?
Yeah, similar thoughts to you, and to be honest, that goal from Tielemans against Man U, I thought was exquisite, like an unusual finish, and there's still debate about whether he meant it or not. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt, say he did. Has anyone actually asked him, by the way? Mind you, you know what his answer's going to be, don't you? But it was a goal you don't see every season, even, never mind every week. You know, so I'd like to see something with a bit of sort of individuality. But that strike, that you mentioned, it was like a sledgehammer of a shot, but it was a graceful sledgehammer, wasn't it? It wasn't ballooned in the back of the net. It was the timing of it. It was so sweet, and it travelled so swiftly, didn't it? I think Maddison's, you know, he'll be in the top three, but bronze is probably the best he'll get, I think. Tielemans second and first, and I think in the order that me and you have mentioned,
Yeah, I think you'd be hard-pressed again to disagree. But if you do disagree, you can head to lcfc.com to vote for your favourite. It was quite an important weekend, wasn't it? Both the top end of the table and the bottom end of the table in the Premier League. What caught your eye, Matt?
Well, not regarding relegation, but in terms of results, the 4-0 Brighton against Man United. That's not relevant to what we're talking about. Everton, obviously, we saw that and what developed there. Burnley was a little bit of a surprise, wasn't it? You know, I didn't see the game, obviously, but I don't know. The scoreline suggests that it was because they only scored late on as well, didn't they? 3-0 down against Villa. You're thinking that's a surprisingly poor effort considering the stakes. But Leeds, more understandable. Arsenal going pretty well, looking strong, aren't they, for that Champions League spot? But I suppose it's just the way that everything's changed so quickly, hasn't it? You know, the picture. Leeds were pretty much patting themselves on the back at one stage for thinking they were safe. I know they still had work to do, at every stage, but Everton looked doomed, didn't they, really? You thought when Burnley got that win last weekend, was it Watford? You thought, that's it. It's pretty much over. 5 points, but we should have known better, really. They've got themselves out of it, Everton, in terms of the bottom three slots. And Leeds, you just think, you think they've had their sort of rejuvenation after Bielsa going and Marsh coming in. A couple of games to adjust to it, and then they had an upturn in fortunes, and now they look lost again, don't they? And they look, I suppose it's obvious to say because they're in that 17-spot slot, but they look favourites to go, don't they? You see, Everton look favourites to stay up. Burnley have got a difficult run-in, as do Leeds, really. But I think Leeds have been. I think Leeds have given as good as they can give. I know they've probably got more ability in their team throughout with individuals than Burnley, so they've got people who can win games, match winners for them. But I just think they look so fragile in the amount of goals they concede, and I think surprisingly, I think they're going to be the ones who bite the bullet.
What do you reckon, Ewan?
Do you know what? I've got a feeling, even though they've done unbelievably well since they got rid of Sean Dyche. I mean, that was a massive wake-up call for Burnley at Turf Moor on Saturday. Cause I think Villa were in a shocking run of form as well, going into that game, and to lose in that manner, so easily turned over at home to a team in poor form. And you look at Leeds, they're in dreadful form as well. I mean, they didn't help themselves when Luke Ayling got sent off for the stupid challenge yesterday when they were 2-0 down. I mean, they showed a lot of character in the second half, to be fair, and got that goal back, but never looked like taking anything. If you look at, I mean, Burnley's games, they've got to go to Spurs next. They've got to go to Aston Villa, which won't be easy, and they've got a home game against Newcastle. Leeds, I think their 2 games at Ellen Road is going to be massively important. Then they've got Chelsea, and you just don't know what you're going to get off Chelsea these days. I mean, they were cruising against Wolves, 2-0 up, Wolves down to 10 men, but throw a good 2-goal lead away, and Wolves leave with a point. Then they've got Brighton at home, and I know Brighton had that magnificent result against Manchester United, and then they go to Brentford on the last day of the season, which won't be easy. I just look at those 2 home games for Leeds, and if they can get 4 points from those 2 home games, they're all ifs and buts, Stan. We know that. I just get a feeling after what happened to Sean Dyche, even though the results were positive after he left, until Villa went up there and turned them over, I get the feeling that they could be the 3rd team that goes down, along with Watford and Norwich.
Nice little segue. Excuse me. Nice little segue into to the end of the show, into our football Jenga. There, Ewan's last word there was Norwich. We know Leicester are playing Norwich, of course, on Wednesday. So, I thought I'd go back and look at games between Norwich and Leicester, and married up a time when both of you played for both of those clubs. So, on the 5th of October 2002, Norwich and Leicester played out a 0-0 draw at Carrow Road. I just want anyone that was in the starting 11 or the substitutes that day for Norwich and Leicester, please. Now, whether or not you two agree, if you agree on this, I was thinking of giving you sort of 1 life each, just because with ones like this, sometimes if you pick an obvious player that played at that time, he might have been randomly out injured or suspended for that game. So it's up to you if you want a life each or if you just want to play it as normal.
Should we have a life each, Matty?
Just the one?
Yeah, only one, yeah. Not good all day.
Yeah, go on, let's have a life each then. Come on in.
Yeah. Right, Matt, go first then.
No, can you go first, please?
I'm going to go for myself.
Yeah.
I'll go for myself then. I can't remember the game.
Yeah, it was 0-0. This might jog your memory. There was 9 yellow cards. 6 of those, 6 for Leicester players. Matt, you weren't one of them, but you were one of them.
Was I? No way. Did I smash Matty? Did I get you, Matty? Did I get you back breaking my ribs all those years ago?
Yeah, trying to get revenge, mate. I kept an eye out for you. I knew you were coming.
I'm going to go for Craig Fleming.
Yeah.
Oh, do you know what? I've got no recollection of this game, but how bad's that? 2002.
So it's the 2002-03 season. It was in October.
So that's with... Hang on, that's Mickey Adams, isn't it? Is it?
Yeah, well, 2002 to 2003, so post Filbert Street.
Yeah. Yeah, we got promoted, didn't we? So this is the season. Oh, did I play in that game? Because
You just answered yourself.
no, I know. No, I know. I'm just trying to remember.
Who's your partner? Who was your partner?
Played,
Who you play next to? You must remember that, surely.
mate, I hardly played that season. Mickey Adams was trying to edge me out. I'm going to have to go tag.
Yeah.
I'm going to go Adam Drury.
Yeah.
Muzzy, is it?
Oh, he's on a roll now, isn't he? On a roll. Malky Mackay.
Malky Mackay. There's a name. That was Peter Taylor. I'm getting confused with different. They're right. Was Sav still there?
He wasn't.
Oh, there's my life then.
There's your life gone.
Well, the kettle's
go-
on anyway. Kettle's on.
I'm going to go Rob Green.
Well, he wasn't in this squad anyway, Matt, by the way.
Right, okay. They might have left by then, mightn't they? He had left, didn't he?
Yeah.
That's poor shout. Poor shout. Let's go. Paul Dickov. Come on in, you.
Is that right then?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Phil Mulryan.
Yeah.
James Scowcroft.
Correct.
Darren Kenton.
Yeah.
Who's that saying? I should remember more. I was just trying to think around that because there were so many players who were coming and going. Les Ferdinand.
No, that's you gone, Matt, I'm afraid.
Yeah, not a poor effort. Les
Well,
was
was
there
a poor effort. I was expecting better from you there. Ewan, just get one to win it.
Paul McVeigh.
Yeah, well done. I think Ewan could have probably said the whole squad there. So Norwich-wise, Chris Llewellyn, David Nielsen, Gary Holt, Neil Emblin, Nicky Southall, Paul Crichton, Steen Nedergaard and Zema Abbey. And then from a Leicester point of view, Alan Rogers, Andy Impey, Billy McKinley, Brian Dean, Callum Davidson, Frank Sinclair, Ian Walker, Nicky Summerby, Simon Royce, Stephen Oates, Trevor Benjamin.
Did you say that was in the Championship?
Well,
It was in the Championship.
Yeah.
It was in the Championship.
Yeah, that's why I'm getting confused, because I was thinking that was the Championship team. I could have picked more. Oh, messed up there, man.
Is that the kettle?
Why are you trying to blame it? Yeah.
Because we had a whole influx of players. I was thinking that was the Premier League the following season. We got promoted that year.
Yeah.
I could have named most Nicky Summerby and Billy McKinley.
You'd gone down, obviously, at the end of the Filbert Street season, and then that was the start of that.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't hear you say. That's why I probably can't remember the game. I'm thinking it's Premier League and it didn't even happen.
A little bit of a Walshy moment there from Matt.
Yeah,
but,
I did, to be fair, because Les wasn't even there then, Ferdinand, and Sam had gone. Oh, well.
Oh, well.
It wasn't your best question, Batesy, anyway, was it?
It's a good one,
I thought it was quite nice to add the two of you in.
Yeah.
You could have both done that. I think Ewan did well there, so just you were poor there, mate. Right, we'll be back again on Wednesday, of course. The two of you are both joining us on Wednesday for the Norwich coverage. It's a 7:45 kickoff at King Power Stadium, so join us for Match Day Live from 6:15. But thank you very much to Ewan Roberts and to Matt Elliott for their company today.